Hey everybody, I'm super glad that you have decided to watch this video course on disciple making culture. It's my heart behind this is to create a tool, a resource for you as a pastor, ministry leader, to be able to really take the principles from this book and apply it, to put it into practice. And I've asked some great friends of mine that are disciple making practitioners to join in this video conferencing class to help you hear things that they've done, that they've applied, mistakes that we've all made, areas that we've learned and grown when it comes to making disciples the way Jesus made disciples. So what I'd love to do is introduce each person to you and kind of my relationship with them. And I'm hoping that you get as much out of this as possible, and that this does in fact help you to make disciples the way Jesus made disciples. So I want to start with my friend Bob Reed.
So I've been in relationship with Brandon for the last 10 years. When I went to my first DS1 in Post Falls, he was my facilitator, and that DS1 so wrecked my life that I had all kinds of questions: how to implement, what do I need to do, what do I need to change, and I bugged him constantly, trying to continue to figure out, how do we actually live this stuff out? How do I lead this personally, and how do I lead it at our church? He was significant in helping me implement that at our church where I was at. And then also had the privilege and opportunity to be able to do a lot of trainings with him over the years, both in the United States as well in different parts of the world. And then when he went to plant Real Life Texas, I had the opportunity to serve on his board. And then we also serve on the Relational Discipleship Network board together. So it's just been a privilege and an honor to call him a friend and partner in ministry.
Thanks, Bob. I'd love to introduce Derek McNeil. I've known Derek for about 7 years. I really wanted Derek on this video class because I've watched Derek over the last 7 years, again, be a practitioner of disciple making. Derek is a small groups pastor, but beyond his ministry position, he makes disciples. And I thought it would be so great for all of you to learn and hear from him as somebody that has built culture around him, that raises leaders up in a culture and raises up disciple makers. And so Derek, maybe share a little bit more about yourself.
Yeah, like Brandon said, I met him about 7, 8 years ago. He was on staff at a church in Houston and I was attending. At that time, I just started in my first small group. Actually, my wife and I were leading the group together, and we had just began to coach other groups when I met Brandon. And so once we met, we became friends, and he was really instrumental in my disciple-making development. I remember him inviting me out to a couple of different churches with him just to kind of come hang out, because we have an inviting culture. So he invited me to go out with him. We visited a church here in Houston and went to Oklahoma and visited another church, and he gave me an opportunity to help facilitate those trainings. And it was amazing. Now, the thing is, when I started with my experience with Brandon, it just opened my eyes to what God had presented for me. And I realized that myself personally had grown deep and tall in my own faith, but I didn't have the understanding that I needed to have in order to understand what it meant to make and send disciples, and that I had an intentional, purposeful role in developing that and doing that in the lives of others. And Brandon helped me realize that, and my trajectory has gone skyward since then, and I don't see myself looking back.
That's great, Derek. Thanks. I want to introduce another friend of mine here as part of the class, David Garrison. David and I met, I think, about 4 years ago, and he is the senior pastor in his church and been leading them through a tremendous change, and watching him make some shifts. And he has been just a great example and is an example for all of you pastors or leaders that are leading and wanting to make a shift in your culture. And David, I just appreciate you and your commitment to living out Jesus's methodology. Maybe share a little bit more about yourself.
Thanks, Brando. So yeah, like Brandon said, we met about 4 years ago. Actually, it was through our small groups pastor, and we have become outstanding, great friends. Brandon has, I mean, if I just speak directly to you, Brandon, you have mentored, you have discipled our leadership team, which I have deeply appreciated. And you use that word shift. We literally have been shifting the culture of our church. And I would say it like this: we've been shifting from the mentality of saying we wanted to grow a mega church to now we want to grow a disciple making church. And it's been a phenomenal journey. It's had its peaks, it's had its valleys, but the beautiful thing is, you know, Brandon's been there every step of the way with us, literally, because it was about 5 years ago that I had gone on sabbatical. I've been with the church for a long time. Elders gave me a sabbatical, came back from that sabbatical, and our leadership team started talking about, hey, what's a new vision that maybe God is leading us in and where we could be headed. And we thought, well, what if we went back to the vision of Jesus, just making disciples? We read Robert Coleman's great classic, The Master Plan of Evangelism, and it was like God introduced us to you, Brandon, and you jumped in with us, and blood, sweat, and tears. And it has been beautiful to watch the idea and watch our church being transformed into a disciple-making church, where that's beginning to take root all over the place. And it's just been a privilege and a great journey to be on with you. And I'm honored that, you know, I could be on this panel with you, brother.
Thanks, David. Yeah, you guys are doing a great job over there. Then finally, I want to introduce my friend Sherry Miles. Sherry and I have known each other for a long time. Was at Real Life Ministries in Post Falls together. And I've learned a tremendous amount from Sherry. She is incredible at making disciples. But Sherry, one of the things I'm just always have admired with you is your heart and passion to raise people up and release them, to make volunteers, get people in the game. And I know we'll hear more about that from you as the day goes on. But I just appreciate you and just getting to do ministry with you over the years. And so maybe just share a little bit about yourself with everyone that's listening.
Thanks, Brandon. Yeah, we've known each other. I was just talking the other day to my husband, and it's 19 years. It's a long time. And you were our boss, and one of the things I love about you, Brandon, and how you helped me grow as a disciple is when we were really going through some hard times with our daughter who struggled with addiction and became a single mom. You and Amber came alongside both Craig and I and our daughter and just loved us in a way that was truly like Jesus loves people. And I'll never forget that. And it made me remember that I want people to feel that same way that you made us feel. And the reason I'm so passionate about making disciples and learning about and teaching about the culture of that is I didn't grow up in a Christian home. And when I became a Christian, I was a single mom. I was divorced, and my life was a complete train wreck. And I didn't know what to do other than I believed in Jesus, but I didn't know who he was. And I started going to church and got into a small group right away with my girls. And I experienced a love like I've never experienced before, of people who just came alongside us and mentored us and walked through really hard times with us. And when we came to Real Life, I knew that I knew as a Christian, I loved ministry, all of that, but I didn't realize what it meant to be a disciple. And when our church really dug into defining what that is, what does a mature disciple look like, it just totally changed my life. And one of the reasons I love recruiting people, training people, and getting volunteers in the game is because I know that when they do that, their entire lives are going to change. And I believe that we just rob people of a blessing if we don't get them in the game so they can experience that same thing.
That's great. Yeah. And God's really used you in a lot of people's lives. it's great to hear. And I'm so thankful to all of you for taking the time to be in this, and I'm looking forward to how God's going to use each of you in this time to help Jesus's church grow, and for us to continue to build a disciple making culture. So I'm excited to get going today. And then finally, I want to introduce my friend Chad Harrington. Chad, I just appreciate so much all that you have done, been instrumental in helping this book get out and be published as you lead Hymn Publishing, and just what you've meant to me, your friendship, your encouragement. And I just appreciate and look forward to you hosting the class today and guiding us through this discussion. So Chad, thank you again for everything that you have done.
Thanks, Brandon. I'm really excited to be a part of this and honored to join you in the crafting of this book. Turned out great, Disciple Making Culture. And for those listeners, we want to encourage you to go through this course with the book. We're going to add a lot of texture from the various experiences of our panelists. We've got senior pastors, small group, we've got different people on the panel here to add texture to the content in this book. And what's going to be great is, as we go through each chapter in short snippets, it's going to enable you to sort of journey with the panelists as they point out things that mattered to them. And they're going to push back with Brandon. They're going to ask questions, but they're also, because Brandon knows each one of these people, David, Derek, Sherry, and Bob, they're going to be able to show you part of what the culture looks like. These are friends or coworkers, they're fellow workers in the kingdom. And so allow that to be an opportunity for you to watch and learn even just how they relate to each other. Even though it's on a video camera, allow that to impact you. Brandon talks about in chapter 2 how it's about love. And as we get into that, it's not, I almost wish it was the first chapter because of how vital it is. But everyone's got these relationships embedded in love, and it's love of God and love of people. And so as we dig into this, I just want each of the panelists to go through and share their heart about disciple making, why they're excited about this. So Derek, if you would start us off, brother, before we jump into the meat of this video course, just tell us a little bit more about your heart here.
Yeah, like when I first started in my small group, I didn't know it at the time. I didn't have the language, but my wife and I entered as spiritual young adults. I mean, we knew how to feed ourselves in the Word. We were God-centered and others-focused, but we didn't have the understanding of Christ's methods for making disciples. That was lost to us. And then we had an opportunity to attend our first DS1 at our church. We had a local in-house DS1, and it's kind of funny that Pastor Bob here happened to be my first facilitator that I experienced in the DS1, and I'm still here, which is a good thing. But he is an amazing person. Brandon has discipled him well, and he is now discipling me and our staff well. We have a cultural love. I got an opportunity after that. My heart was completely wrecked when I realized that I was not on the playing field, that I was just in the stand watching and developing myself as a disciple maker, and not even considering anyone else. So Brandon helped me understand that. He gave me an opportunity to travel with him to Ethiopia, where we trained in Ethiopia, went to Sodo and Addis Ababa. It was just beautiful, met great teams. We facilitated what it meant to reproduce disciples of Jesus Christ in another continent. It was an amazing experience. And I just am so enamored with this idea that God has chosen me to be on his team and to move forward and help other people gain this understanding what it means to be in relationship with him and others.
All right. And Bob, tell us a little bit more about your passion behind disciple making and disciple making culture.
Yeah, when I went through my first DS1, like I mentioned, it wrecked me, really exposed some things in me that needed to change, and knew that, I wanted to do this for the rest of my life as far as making disciples the way that Jesus made disciples. And I think the piece that I see so much is that it not only had an impact on me personally, but it had a major impact on my family, in my marriage with my kids, seeing them begin to live this out, walk this out, them become disciple makers as well. I've had the privilege now of helping transition 2 different churches to becoming relational disciple-making churches. And so it's my passion. To me, when I went back to the church where I first, after I first heard about this and went through the DS1, there was such a deep conviction that I eventually went to our elders and said, hey, if we don't want to make this shift to move in this direction to being a disciple-making church, I totally get it and understand it. However, and this isn't a threat, it's, none of that kind of, it's not a power play. However, I will resign quietly and graciously because I have to do this for the rest of my life, because I don't want to do ministry any other way than the way that Jesus modeled. So this is a passion. This isn't a job. This is something I would do and will continue to do, no matter if I'm working outside the church or have the privilege of working inside the church. It's just a huge passion for me. So I absolutely just love it.
Thanks, Bob. David, tell us a little bit more about your passion behind disciple-making culture.
Yeah, this is probably going to sound like a crazy statement, but I was one of those pastors who I'd gone into ministry, but I can say that I was probably never intentionally discipled. And I grew up in the church, and mind blown as I began to discover, hey, this is the way of Jesus. I've quoted Eugene Peterson a million times when he said Jesus restricted 90% of his ministry to 12 men, and with those 12 men, he changed the world. And also the idea that I've been in vocational ministry for nearly 30 years, and I had never intentionally, I could say this, I'd never intentionally discipled someone. And so when Brandon came into our lives as a leadership team, and he just graciously began discipling us, that really began to change the trajectory for me personally. And we did the DS1. Brandon was actually our leader at DS1. And that was when the lights really came on for me. But here's what I can say. Discipleship now defines my life, and it defines our entire approach to ministry as a church, and I cannot get enough of it.
Thanks. And Sherry, did you have anything else you wanted to add there?
Oh, I don't think so.
Okay. All right.
Hey, my name is Derek McNeil. I am the small groups pastor at Sci Life Church in Cypress, Texas.
All right, Bob.
I'm Bob Reed. I'm the lead pastor at Sci Life Church in Houston, Texas.
Are you in Houston or Cypress, Bob? Just so.
And David.
It's the same.
Okay.
So I'm David Garrison, and I'm the lead pastor at Northside Christian Church in Spring, Texas.
All right, give that to us one more time.
Okay. Yeah, my name is David Garrison, and I am the lead pastor at Northside Christian in Spring, Texas.
And Sherry.
I'm Sherry Miles, and I'm from Real Life Ministries in Post Falls, Idaho, and I'm over our training and development ministry.
Awesome. Well, we're going to go ahead and jump into the content here.